it's me, T, and it's been a while. So, yeah, I mean, this is exactly why I said I wasn't going to make any promises, because, yeah. But I have been reading. I've been reading quite a bit, actually. And I got a new cat. You can see him back there. And I'm in my new apartment. But that's not why we're here today. So, today I felt very invigorated to make my first rant review, I guess we'll call it, of a book that was just so disappointing to me. I feel like I should have seen this coming from this series, but it just hurt. It just hurt. And that book I'm talking about is The Sun in Its Shade by Piper C.J. I read this book back in July for my Pride readathon that I did. I may make another video on that. No promises. You know me. And it was probably the worst book I read that month. And by probably, I mean most definitely. Before I get into anything, this is going to contain spoilers for The Night in Its Moon and The Sun in Its Shade. I read The Night in Its Moon back in January. It was a Christmas gift from a friend. When I read it back then, I could see the clear parallels to the story of The Witcher, which I've only seen the show. I haven't read the books or played the game, so I only have that I'm basing it off on. But reading it, to me, it felt transformative enough. I don't know, the fact that Nox worked in the Selkie and the cuts between that felt different enough from The Witcher, like separate enough. It felt more unique, less of just a copy-pasted world. So I really enjoyed The Night in Its Moon, and after reading The Sun in Its Shade, I've realized that I only really like The Night in Its Moon for the parts with Nox in it, with her seducing the men, being a succubus spy. At the end of this book, it ends with Nox and Amaris meeting again, but being torn away pretty much right away. Amaris is prisoner in the Queen's castle, and she has to fight the Agdrith. Well, actually, she's posed with the option to either kill one of the Northern Fae, which there's a curse that makes them look like demons to all other people except Amaris, because she has true sight. So she has a choice to either kill this person, who everyone else sees as a demon at that moment, or face the consequences, essentially. Obviously, main character, plot armor, or whatever, she can't do it. So a demon comes out called an Agdrith. I think that's how you're supposed to pronounce it. But it's basically like a dragon. And so her and this Northern Fae named Gadriel, they fight it, and they basically end up breaking it free and then clinging onto it to escape their arena. And then they let go of it, and they fall through a bunch of trees and stuff like that, and they're, well, Amaris isn't in good shape, but Gadriel kind of shielded her. The Northern Fae had wings, so he kind of used those to shield her. And he's in really bad shape. So that's basically where it leaves off for Amaris. Nox, on the other hand, she is put on kind of an espionage mission to get into the Queen's castle through the Royal Guard, I think it was. So she seduces him, does her succubus thing, steals his soul, makes him a puppet, you know, queen shit. When she's in the castle, it happens to be at the same time Amaris is in there, because, you know, convenience, plot armor, that kind of thing. So she sees Amaris, they reunite very briefly. Amaris's last request to Nox is to protect her brethren, which is basically, they're called Reavers. It's basically like the Witchers, just a different world. It's almost exactly copy-paste. The Reavers are a group of what people kind of fear of, like assassins and all that, and don't really understand them, and people give them a white berth. The Witchers are kind of the same thing. The Reavers' numbers are dwindling throughout the years. Same with the Witchers. The Reavers have never had a female Reaver. The Witchers had never had a female Witcher until, I can't think of her name. Is this Cece? I can't think of it right now. It's been too long since I've seen the show, but the next season is, I think it's actually out now. I'll have to watch that after this. But anyways, very clear parallels between the two. Witchers kill demons and monsters in their realm. Reavers do the same thing. So, very clear comparison there. But Amaris's last wish before her and Nox are pulled apart again is to protect her brethren, who she was on the mission with to go talk to the queen and all that. So Nox has now escaped the castle with Ash and Malik, the two other Reavers that Amaris was with, and they're kind of just wandering around trying to figure out next steps. So that's where The Sun and Its Shade picks up. So, in the beginning of this book, I was kind of excited to see where it go. We start off with Amaris and Gadriel. They end up getting picked up by the university, which is these like really preppy, really smart people that there's like different sectors of it, kind of like a university would here in America, at least. I don't know how overseas works, but like School of Engineering, School of Medicine, stuff like that. But here it's all like School of Manufacturing, School of Magic, School of, I think it's like Healing or something like that. But anyways, they get picked up by those people. And like I said, Gadriel, he's a Northern Fae, so he's cursed to look like a demon. So everyone sees Amaris, and then her like pet demon is what they think. So Amaris gets treated like a human, and Gadriel gets chained down, basically treated like a monster. He has like a vet staff attending to him. So in the beginning, Amaris has to like fight to prove that he is not a demon, which that's a whole thing, but she ends up proving that, and Gadriel gets better and all that. And her and him find out while they're at the university, one of the pieces they're missing to figure out the border curse is in the university. So they go on a whole quest for that and find that out. And you can tell there's some growing tension between them the whole time, which this wasn't surprising to me. In the first book, Amaris feels like very much a self-insert character for the author. So I wasn't surprised. This book has been advertised as a bisexual fantasy book. So I had a strong feeling / just kind of knew Amaris was bi. So I wasn't surprised with this kind of love triangle they're setting up between Gadriel, Nox, and Amaris. But the thing was, whenever Amaris, like, whenever we're in her point of view and she's talking about Nox, she doesn't seem as interested, or she's like, I can't think about that. I can't think about that. Like, you can't tell her true feelings for Nox at all. And it almost kind of just comes across as very detached. Meanwhile, Nox, in her point of view, you can see she's all like, I'm in love with Amaris. Like, I hate men. I love Amaris. Like, fuck the patriarchy, but Amaris. So, in the first book, I was all like, okay, Nox is very kind of coded as a lesbian. At least to me, it seemed like. Her experience with men and the way she talked about her interactions with them sounded very displeasurable to her and uncomfortable. So I was really confused in the second book when Nox and the male Reavers are going on their kind of let's figure out what's going on in the kingdom thing. As they're going through that, Nox develops kind of a relationship with Malik. And then it just felt so unnecessary. it was the first man she'd ever met and like not hated, and so obviously she had to develop some kind of romantic connection with him. Like they couldn't just be friends, which I think would have been a better story, but I'm not the author. But it was just so frustrating because it's all like, why can't we just have a female character that likes women and just women and is okay with that? And this trauma for men that makes her suspicious of them, that makes her not like them, and then she can meet these characters that aren't, you know, not all men, and she doesn't have to fall in love with them, or she doesn't have to have feelings for them. She can just befriend them. She can just heal her trauma through friendship. It doesn't have to be a romantic thing, and it just made me so mad. But I digress. Throughout the book, I start realizing it has none of the like succubus espionage aspects I liked, or even I really like just like Nox's point of view through when she was going through the act of being a succubus, like the act of hunting almost. And there's like none of that in there. Like Nox is trying to use her powers for the good, which like I understand, but like you don't see a lot of internal struggle with this from men are useless and I'll use them for whatever to get what I want to. Maybe I shouldn't do this. It's just very sudden, and it lacked those parts that I really liked in the book that I felt like made it more transformative from just the world of The Witcher. So this book felt like it was just a Witcher fan fiction. The other one, like I said, it had enough variation in it where I was like, okay, I can tell it's inspired, but it feels like a different enough world. But this one felt very copy-paste with little to no transformation between the two. Even with Amaris, she starts to unlock her further powers, and her powers are similar to even, I can't think of her name, but Cece in The Witcher. And they have like the same appearance and all that. Like it's very, the parallels were already very clearly there, and this book decided to be all like, I hear what you're saying about the first book and them being similar, I'm gonna make it more of that. And the parts of the book that made it interesting, like the twists and stuff, like Amaris turns out to be like, you know, a child from the goddess sent to like help restore balance and all that. But like that plot twist didn't seem like quite the plot twist it was supposed to be. And then Nox's plot twist is that she's the child of the two kingdoms, basically the king and the northern kingdom, and the princess in the southern kingdom had a little affair together, and they ended up having Nox. And then Nox was turned to the orphanage to protect her, and yada yada yada. But even with that, I felt like I saw that coming in the first book. So it just felt really predictable, and a lot of the fun was sucked out of it. Children. And then in the ending, basically, Amaris and Nox are reunited again. And how I was saying with Amaris not really showing a lot of interest or a lot of like detachment towards Nox, suddenly when they're reunited, Amaris is all like, you're my everything. You're my sun, my moon, my stars. And it just felt off. It felt out of nowhere, especially because just the chapter before, her and Gadriel finally talked about their feelings and like did the thing. Like didn't do the full thing, but did some of the thing. So it just felt awkward and disingenuous. But anyways, they get reunited again, and then like immediately, kind of like how the last book ended, they're torn apart. And it just felt like, okay, we're copying basically the same world of The Witcher. And then, in terms of, you know, the story, we're kind of following the same thing as the first book, where they're trying to look for each other, and they finally reunite, and then they get ripped apart again. So then it's like, do I even want to read the third book? Which, I think I'm going to give the third book a try, because the last 50 pages or so, I felt like I was starting to see again the aspects of the first one that I really liked. Like, just getting a hint of that back. So I want to give the third book a try to see what it's like. But this series is on thin ice. Very thin ice. Overall, I gave this book a 2.75 stars out of 5. I have some additional roasts that I forgot to put in, that I want to put in. So, here those are. So in the beginning of this book, it has the sun in its shade, and it has a listen along with. And so I was all like, oh, cool. So I thought it was going to be like classical-esque, like instrumental music that was fairly long that you could listen to, because there weren't that many songs in each one for each part. This is a 520-page book, and the runtime for the whole playlist is like an hour. So, Piper CJ, I appreciate that you think I can read a 520-page book in an hour, but I'm human, unfortunately. When I was looking in more to the series and all that, I was seeing when the third book was released, because this was released in February, and the first book was released fairly late last year, I feel like. And it says that the next book is being released this month, in July. And so I was looking at it, and I guess the author is rapidly releasing the series. And you can tell. There is quite a few typos in this book as well. And I feel like whenever I'm reading and I hit a typo, it's like I'm sprinting and then I trip. It just catches me off guard and I have to like get back on track. So that was very distracting as well. And then the scene between Gadriel and Amaris, the scene, I've never read something like that that made me feel so nauseous. And maybe that's because I've realized that I'm gay, but I felt nauseous reading that. And I hated it. I hated every second of that. Okay, back to my outro. And yeah, I just need to get on here and get that off my chest, because I feel like I've had that pinned up for the past few weeks, and I need to just... So hopefully you enjoyed this video. I definitely needed it. Like usual, I don't know when I'll be back. Maybe you'll see me next week. Maybe you'll see me in a year. Who knows? That's part of the fun. Call me the booktube version of Jessie Smiles. But anyways, I will see you guys in the next video. As always, like this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you want to see whenever I post again. And always go support your local bookstore. Okay, guys.